You may begin.
Thank you. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our follow-up meeting. I don't think we'll be too long here this morning, but I certainly wanted to bring everybody up to date on where we are. So can I get a motion, please, for the adoption of the agenda for Tuesday, December 8th? Come on, kids, we can do it. That's it. Councillor Vale and O'Reilly, thank you. Any objections? Thank you. We'll consider that passed. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest on today's agenda? Seeing none. We have the minutes from the October 13th Recovery Task Force meeting, the draft minutes. Can I get a motion to approve and adopt those, please? Unless there's any corrections, but I don't think so. Councillor Seymour Fagan, thank you. Second by Bjorn. Attaboy, thank you. Anyone object? Any not in favor? Okay, we'll consider that passed. No business arising from the minutes. We'll just jump into new business, and we just want to go through some of the different areas for a bit of an update on where we are. If you have any questions, just raise your hand or jump in if I miss you. We've got Sherry Davidson is joining us today. She's got a little bit update at the end on some of the material. And other than that, we will just go through it. So the first part is the first focus area on number 7 was infrastructure stimulus. So we talked about some of the different infrastructure. Juan is with us, who's Director Rojas is with us, and Christina Sisson, who sort of helped us out with the infrastructure coming forward. We talked about the downtown project. So the Lindsay downtown, as you know, was approved on an early start program, and I think that construction is scheduled to start in January. Infrastructure for council did approve last week at our capital budget the proposal that was brought forward for the Lindsay downtown, or sorry, for the Finland Falls downtown revitalization. So that $2.7 million was utilized out of a reserve to proceed with that project. So that'll be going out to tender. I don't know if you have any update on that one, just timelines, tender, how that project might roll out. I know it's downtown revitalization along with the infrastructure under the ground, obviously being done at the same time. They were both approved by our council. So that was great news because we talked about how important our downtowns were. That has been approved in our capital budget for 2021. It was deferred at first to 2022, but council, on the recommendation of this task force, moved it forward. So we'll be proceeding on that. So I don't know, Juan, if you have any information, you can give us a quick update on how that might roll out.
Sure. Actually, 2 points.
Did you hear me, Juan?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're kind of breaking in and out, but go ahead.
Hold on. Okay, so 2 points on the downtown Lindsay project. That was awarded to New Alliance. They're tentatively going to start on January 4th. Physical construction. We'll give Public Works all the right notice, but the notices have gone out already. So the notices for the residents and the businesses have all been circulated. We've looped in communications for those notices. There are ongoing building inspections. We always do pre-construction building inspections just to have a baseline. So those have been issued and are underway. And the developer, or sorry, not the developer, the contractor has called for locates. So you'll see the various different utilities spray painting their locates on the road. It's mandated. So that's all good news. In terms of Finland Falls, it's our plan to issue the tender next week or before the 18th. So I'm thinking middle of next week, we'll get the tender out to purchasing. We're just wrapping up the documents now. And then they'll release it next week. And we'll close the tender probably mid-January. We're not gonna, the 2 weeks or the week in between Christmas and New Year's, it's sort of a grace period. So that's why we always extend it a little bit later, so mid-January, so contractors have the ability to price it correctly. In the tender documents, we specified the time frame where they're not allowed to work. So we said they're not going to be allowed to work between the May long weekend and the Labor Day long weekend. So basically June, July, and August, for those 3 months, there'll be no activities in downtown Finland. It would have to be restored and passable. So we're giving the contractor the option, because they're the experts. So they could either start in February to the May long weekend, recognizing that they may not be done as long as they restore the road so it's passable, and then pick up after September. Or they could wait until September and start from September to May of 2022. So those are basically the two time periods that we've allowed for in the tender, and we'll wait for them to propose a plan and review it accordingly.
Thanks for that, Juan. I know you were talking just before the meeting started, but can you give us a quick update on just some of the other residential development going on around the city? I know you were rhyming off quite a few. Maybe you can just update the task force.
Sure. So in no particular order. So we do have Ravines of Lindsay, which is a Bromont development so it's north of Coburn, west of Angeline. Approximately 160 or 150 single-family residential homes. So that's fully serviced. The subdivision agreement is registered and the lots are created. And he's pulled 30 building permits to date, of which about a half dozen or maybe a little bit more basements are in place. So he's going to be constructing homes over the winter, at least 30 of them, if not more. So he's fully built. He's fully sold out. So we anticipate within a year and a half, he'll be fully built out. The next one is Kraft, which is the large parcel of land on the northeast corner of Highway 35 and Colbert Street. We have a meeting with them on Thursday. They're working towards a pre-servicing agreement for their phase one residential. Their sales are going quite well. They haven't pulled any building permits because they haven't registered their plan. But that's their intent. Their intent is to service either later in the winter or early spring with possible fall construction for their residential units. I think their phase one is just over 100 towns, but I'm not exactly sure on the number. The next one would be Springdale Gardens phase 3 and 4, again in Lindsay, on Angeline, on the east side of Angeline, north of Colbert Street. I believe they have about 65 residential units. So they're actively doing their earthworks. They enter into a pre-servicing earthworks agreement only, and they're basically done their earthworks. And they want to enter into a pre-servicing agreement for undergrounds, which we're working on. They'll probably get started late January, early February with that servicing. And then the fourth one, again, these are just the larger subdivision ones, is Rokeby, which is in Bob Cajun. I think it's 68 residential units. They went to PAC on December 2nd and are going to council on the 15th for endorsement of their subdivision agreement. So they're going straight to subdivision agreement, and they're not doing a pre-servicing. And we anticipate that their work will start again late January, early February. Full-blown servicing, road building, and then followed by residential homes, hopefully in the summer of 2021. I might have missed a couple. Christina, is there any other notable developments you would like to add?
We also have Woodland Hills in the south in Bethany, former Members Township. They're working towards their revision to the M plan, et cetera, for the lots that they're looking at. Thank you.
Christina, while we have you, or I don't want to put you on the spot, but you've been bringing forward a few amendments to our subdivision agreements to the planning committee just to sort of, I won't say speed things up, but simplify things a little bit and try to work on that process with us. So is there a quick 2-minute overview you can give the task force just on what some of those major changes or minor changes, but how they're affecting the process going forward? Do you mind?
Sure, no problem at all. We're looking at communication is always important, and so clarity of our language in our documents, clarity in timelines, and clarity with respect to the financials. Time is money in terms of development, and security is also related to money. So anything we can do to speed up the process, make things clear, avoid additional submissions, so shorten the length of time for reviews, shorten the number of submissions or lessen the number of submissions, and then lessen the burden on the developer for security. Those are the types of things that we've been looking at to date. And certainly with all of that in mind, we are still keeping paramount the fact that the city must protect its interests as well. So again, because we enter into subdivision agreements are a contractual obligation between ourselves and the developers and their community, we're looking at any methodology we can use to simplify that process, or at least, at the very least, make it very clear.
Awesome. Thank you. So that's kind of an update on lots of things going on. Councillor Riley, yeah, if there's any questions on any of that infrastructure, ask away. Go ahead, Councillor.
No, just two minor updates. The Lindsay Fairgrounds campsite, they started earthworks this week as Monday. And also I see Mark, he's working on the Little Britain Oakwood Fire Hall. The early stages of construction are going out there.
Well, we'll make sure we keep an eye on him.
Yeah,
we'll be expecting that one to come in under budget, right, Mark? Any other questions? Any other questions regarding the infrastructure? I better not go to Mark. He's probably got something to say. Okay, seeing none, there's your update on infrastructure. We'll move down to the second one, planning and development. Some of the programs we've put in place. The two major programs that we've been working on is the spreadsheet of all the development applications, and then the concierge program. I know the spreadsheet was sent to everybody, and I think the report for the concierge that came to our planning committee, these two reports information came to our planning last week, just as sort of a kickoff to getting them into the system and getting them moving forward. So I'm just going to ask Chris Marshall, the Director of Development Services, is with us. Thank you, Chris. If you'll give us just sort of a quick update and the intention on the spreadsheet, and maybe we'll see if there's any questions, and then we'll go over to the concierge program. And I know Bjorn was a big part of the spreadsheet as well, but I'll ask you first, Chris, if you want to give us an update.
Yeah, so we've got our spreadsheets up to date now. We've got all the applications that the planning department is working on. We've got the official plan amendments, the zoning amendments, the consents, the variances, the subdivisions, so site plans. So all the applications that we're working on are listed in there in the Excel spreadsheet. And then along with each of the applications, we have the planner that's working on it and what stage in the process, the planning application process, each of those applications is at. So in a glance, we can see, where the different applications are at any given time. Plus, it can kind of help us with planning for scheduling applications for our planning advisory committee meeting. So, we can see where the bottlenecks might be, or where we need to maybe hold a separate, additional planning advisory committee meeting if we have too many starting to back up. But also this will just help staff. And, a lot of times I get calls from the public and they say, so, I've got an issue with this particular application. Where is it at? And I can just pull up the spreadsheet and in a couple of minutes be able to tell people where their application's at, or a member of the public who's got an inquiry can let them know where things are at in any particular application. So that's very useful. And we've got any new application that comes in, our admins input the application into the spreadsheet, and then the planner, as they work on it throughout the process of the applications, updates it as we go. And as the mayor said, we did present the spreadsheet and the concierge program to the planning advisory committee last week. And so that's well underway.
Yeah, good program. And the intent is for this at this time to be a bit of an internal document. It's not necessarily going to be, it's not a secret, but it's not going to be posted for the public at this point. It's more for your staff to keep an overview. Council will be made aware where they can access it if they want to get an update on somebody's asking them about a development. They don't necessarily have to talk to somebody. They could go onto the spreadsheet and get their own. And I think the intention, correct me if I'm wrong, is bring it to the planning, the PAC planning meeting every quarter, possibly just as an update, just so to keep it moving forward. Is that the intention?
Yeah, keep us honest.
Well, I didn't want to say that, but yeah, that was kind of my intent. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Bjorn, is there anything you want to add? You worked with the planning department on sort of pushing that spreadsheet and trying to get something laid out. Are you any comments?
This actually sounds like it's turned out better than I had hoped for, and as long as Chris is happy, I'm happy. I have a couple other ideas of things we can look at later, but I'll bring that up at the end of the meeting if there's time.
Sounds good. Thank you. Any questions on the spreadsheet? Any comments, questions? Okay. Chris, you want to give us a rundown on the concierge program?
Sure. So when we put out the Planning Advisory Committee report, there was 3 applications that Emily had started working on. Since then, we've had 2 more added. So we now have the Lindsay exhibition property that's going through a site plan. And as Councillor Riley said, they're doing earthworks right now. We have a warehouse development on St. David Street. We have the new hotel project that's at site plan stage on at 140 Angeline Street. So that's just south of the Days Inn Hotel that's there presently. And we have the Fenelon Falls Canadian Tire in addition to the Canadian Tire. So we've added, and I think I may have, I put in a suggestion to Emily to contact, I don't want to say the name of the application yet because they haven't signed on per se, but I did, was part of an email chain in which there was some frustration early on in a site plan application. And so I've asked Emily to reach out to them and see if she can add them to her list of applications. I asked Emily this morning, I had a chat with her just to kind of see how things were going. She said she's reached out to these applicants. A couple of them said, great, thanks very much, and haven't called her back since. I guess things are going well. Some of the others have asked her to get involved. And interesting, what she said that she's doing right now with a couple of the applications is kind of working with the agencies. And she's actually set up a meeting with one of the applications to get the agencies involved to try and push along the feedback that we're waiting on from these agencies. So I think that's a really good use of her time and a great help to the planning department to have her there sort of facilitating for the applicant to get these agencies, get their comments in so that we can keep those applications moving along. So that's just an example of 2 of the applications she's working on right now and the kinds of work she's doing to help them along.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I've heard from a few people that have previously put applications through the program, and they've all said that they think this link between economic development and, somebody who can sort of follow up with them and just have a touch point would have been a great benefit to them when they put their application. They would have enjoyed that. So they all thought unanimously that it was a great idea moving forward to assist everybody, the communication part of it, and to assist our planning department as well. So I think that's a good program. Any questions on the concierge update? Councillor Riley?
Oh, just a couple of things. I think just to further to your remarks, Mayor Latham, I think, and to Rebecca, I think Emily would be a great addition to that department. I think we've worked with her before in other areas. The other thing is, I think the second phase of the Adelaide place is just about ready for occupancy, I believe. It was supposed to be this before Christmas, but it'll probably, if not now, be in the beginning of the new year.
Thank you. our biggest challenge.
Sorry to interrupt. I just remembered one other site plan application that was added, and that is the new condo and townhouse development in Finland Falls on West Street. They're a recent site plan. That was a site plan that came in after the Planning Advisory Committee report went out. So that's I think 6 applications that she's got that she's working on right now.
That's awesome. So Emily, for those of you who don't know, Emily is our heritage officer for economic development. Our biggest challenge will be having her trying to make sure she doesn't turn all our applications into heritage districts. So we'll stay on top of her as she moves forward on that. All our site plans will suddenly be coming forward as heritage districts. So we'll go, okay, Emily, we gotta talk. But she's a great lady, and I think she'll do a great job. So any further questions on the concierge idea? Okay, you guys are easy today. So let's move down to the last one, which is business and recovery and support. We had quite a conversation about some of the different things. So I know Rebecca's here. I'm just going to run through these off our sheet just to give you a bit of a verbal update. But by all means, if I've missed anything at the end, please fill in. So some of the actions from our action item that we had discussed was opening up the community improvement plan for the full utilization of all the tools. That's been done. We talked about allowing patios and restaurants to expand into parking lots or sidewalks if requested. And we also talked about waiving those fees and allowing that to happen in 2021. That will be done. That decision was made. We've talked about waiving some fees for parks and patios and stuff again into 2021. So we will be doing that. The current exemption in place for all industrial DC charges up to 2,500 square feet of commercial. That should be 25,000 square feet of commercial DC charges. This exemption is being reviewed by council at the end of 2021, but it is in our bylaw for 5 years. So it's just a review to see what the uptake is at the end of 2021. At that time, council could choose to remove it. I don't believe that that's the intent that we're going forward with. I have had several developers ask me, is there any chance that council might remove that by the end of 2021? I said, well, we'll see what the uptake is. We'll have that discussion, but I certainly don't believe so. We got off to a bit of a slow start on that one just because of the pandemic, obviously. Tourism and shop local marketing campaigns are underway later in the past summer and this fall. We've got some good uptake, and maybe Rebecca can touch on that a little at the end. Here's where the digital transformation of local businesses through the Digital Main Street program, that is underway, and I believe there's been a pretty good uptake on that. They also asked that council consider from an economic recovery perspective the downtown Finland Falls reconstruction. That will be proceeding in 2020 as you had an update. We asked that council consider an increase in the number of garbage cans and frequency of pickup in our downtowns and parks for 2021. That will happen. That will be part of our operating budget discussions in February. But I have been assured that we're going to find a way to make that work. That council consider an increase in the number of, sorry, I already said that, garbage cans. Yeah, we've got lots of garbage cans. We just need to, through our operating budget, rearrange some of our workforce to make sure that we're keeping things neat and tidy. And we've got a pretty good model going forward that we'll discuss at operating budget. We've asked that council consider an increased signage and portable washrooms in our downtowns. Again, that's an operating budget decision unit. We'll make that happen. We've talked about the council consider increased investment in our boat launches and trails for improved access and enjoyment. In our capital budget, last launches, 2 in the north, 1 on Washburn Island, that will be reinvested in and upgraded. Every year we try to do a couple. They were being deferred just because of our work schedule, but council included 3 of those boat launches that'll happen next year. The trails is part of our operating budget discussion, and there is some funding available through COVID stream from the province. That trails is one of the streams that ties into that. And so we're going to try to access some of that funding, and we should have more information in our operating budget come February. The other one was that the culture master plan implementation be accelerated and that council consider setting up an immediate short-term funding program in 2021 for the cultural sector, which could be applied to operating costs for arts and culture community, and staff develop an ongoing culture organization operating program for consideration in the 2022 budget. So council had considered, we had almost a $3 million surplus from 2019. Council had asked staff to bring back some recommendations and some options on a possible rebate to all our residents and our taxpayers based on the increase they would receive. The rebate amount per household was fairly minimal. The feedback we got from most of our residents, most of council got feedback that we should invest that money in our infrastructure, put it into a reserve for the pandemic. And that's what council did. We took that surplus, we put it into a pandemic relief contingency reserve, and we utilized a portion of that for the Finland downtown as part of our infrastructure. And we have just under $1 million left in that fund. So when we talk about some of these cultural master plan implementation and a possible operating fund to assist these groups, when those terms of reference come forward at the beginning of next year in the spring, we have money set aside to help fund those. And I know there was a request through the community recovery task force as well for some kind of funding. So council has almost $1 million sitting in a fund, and as our pandemic plays out and some of these requests come forward in the spring, we do have a source of funding that we can tap into if council chooses to proceed with those. One of the other recommendations was the improved timelines and processes for the development department, and I think we just had an update on that regarding the concierge and the spreadsheet. The transit master plan will be accelerated to focus on linkage from a working perspective, between Pontypool, Lindsay, Peterborough, Lindsay, and Bob Cajun. We haven't taken a whole lot of action on this yet, but we have had discussions, and I know Juan is our lead. Laurie Scott's office has reached out regarding GO Transit, Metrolinx, to just keep that discussion going forward. So I don't, if he's got an update on us, he can tell us, but we would try to get part of that. We're continuing to try to get part of that through Metrolinx and a GO Transit link. And then what we would do is link our local transit to that after we have that base service in place. So we'll see what happens. In the past, that discussion hasn't gone very far, to be perfectly honest, but we're certainly continuing that discussion moving forward. The other one, that council consider an extension to the Kawartha Lakes Innovation Cluster pilot program to provide specific support for high growth businesses. That lease is being extended. I think that report's coming to council next week on Tuesday as a bit of an update, but we've agreed to extend their lease. The other one is the EORN and the EOWC, the broadband is we had talked about it being the #1 priority from a economic recovery perspective. The province has allocated some money for broadband. The federal government has allocated some money for broadband across the country. And right now we're just trying to work through EORN and Western Ontario on, can we access some of those funds? The federal program, just as a bit of an update, the federal funding that they've put in place is a new program that they've chosen to put it in. And as of right now, EORN in Eastern Ontario, this regional proposal does not fit within their framework of what they're looking to do with the funds. So EORN is working with the federal government to see if we can have a bit of an exemption there to push forward. Otherwise, it'll be just a patchwork of local telecoms applying, in certain regions, and we won't be able to bring a regional approach forward. So we're working on that. We'll see where it goes. But that's the good news is both levels of government have put up funding for broadband, recognizing its priority. We want to increase housing stock. I think we had a conversation. Juan brought us up to date on some of the housing stock going on in the city. So that's good news. And then we will continue to work with Fleming College to help fill market labor needs and trades and stuff. And I know we have a lot of other there. That's kind of an update on, I think our council dealt with most of the things going forward. The ones that we didn't get to deal with are part of our operating budget. But is there anything there, Rebecca, that I missed?
think you've covered everything, and just to share that there will be 2 rounds of the $1 Million Makeover opening in 2021. And Council is also receiving around workforce some agreements in December for the Skills Advance Ontario project to kick that off. So we'll see that in the new year as well. And we do also, we've just received some funding, which we're looking at for some work with agriculture, and it'll be a partnership with Peterborough Economic Development as well to be supporting that industry.
Great, thank you. The one thing I did forget is one of the requests was for council to look at our funds, our grant funds programs that we have in place. We have a 50-50 fund that community groups, we usually put $80,000 into it every year, and community groups can fundraise up to $15,000 for a project. If community groups raise $7,500, then the city matches that $7,500, and it's a local community improvement plan that we have in place, which has been very successful across the city. Council has chosen to waive the community portion of it next year, and in our capital budget, we took the $80,000 and we doubled the amount to $160,000 so that the community groups can still do up to $15,000 of the project, but they won't have to, through fundraising, which is a challenge these days, they won't have to raise their portion of it. So it'll be the same criteria, their portion of the fundraising that needs to be done. And then some of our other funds that we have in place across the city that groups can, for upgrades to playgrounds and stuff across the city, council will be discussing those at operating budget and possibly adding some funds or changing the criteria on those as well. So just trying to round out and put together as much as we can to help some of the community in their recovery efforts. So is there any questions on that before I move on? That was quite a rant on my part, but kind of gave you an update on where we are. I think from a task force perspective, we've taken a lot of those recommendations, and I think we took every recommendation and actually implemented it. So I don't think there's too much that council totally disagreed with. So I think this group can take some good credit for taking that forward. Is any questions, comments? Want to tell us we're doing a really good job or something? Okay, Councillor Riley.
Just maybe to Tom, is there any update from around the college or any work he's doing these days? Tom Phillips?
Well, not really. I mean, what we're preoccupied with right now is trying to get through this fall term without any health and safety problems, and to increase our number of students coming in. So our enrollment for January is looking pretty good, but we're still looking at mostly online courses. So I'd say, like, moving forward with new programs, there is the Skills Advance Ontario programs that we're expanding, and we're looking for more opportunities around the trades. The province is coming out with some new funding related to micro-credentials and upskilling, but the details of that have not come out yet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any update? Anything we missed? Anything should be added? We're covered. Okay. Thank you. So that's our item 9, our focus. The third area of our focus was the business recovery. We're kind of up to date on that. Let's jump down to, I just want to do a bit of a round table at the end, but let's do down to 11.1, which is we did get some correspondence at council from Mike Perry, the People's Economy, did a bit of a presentation just on, I know a lot of this work is already in motion, but it was referred to this task force to have a bit of a conversation about it. So it was sent to you, I believe. Am I correct? Everybody got a copy of it, probably either this morning or last night, just the new normal. I think it ties into a fair bit of what Tom had brought forward and what we're going back to as a, not just as an economy, but as a community as well. So there's a few points in here that that talk about ways that we can do things, and some of these changes we're implementing as a community. Do we have to go back to the way it was, or can we keep moving forward with them? And some of these good changes that have made us a better community, I think the general consensus is, how do we keep that momentum going? Let's not be in a hurry to sort of go back to the way things used to be if we've got a better formula moving forward. But, obviously tying that into affordability and everything else. So there's a few items in here, and I'm going to ask Rebecca first. And I know Sherry's got a few ideas on how we can manage some of the community input, but maybe Rebecca first, if you don't mind. Just give us a quick rundown of some of the ideas in this presentation and some of the emails or some of the things that economic development, yourself and others have already put in place, because I didn't even realize some of these when you sent them through. So I think we're doing a good job on a lot of these. So go ahead.
So there are quite a few. There are 7 different items on this list, and in some way, shape, or form, we're dealing with a few of them. So I can give you an overview of what it is that we are doing. They look a little bit different to what's written in the correspondence, but hopefully this will give you sort of a background as to what's happening on the ground and inform your discussion today. The first one was around incentives to cooperatives, etc. And from our standpoint, anybody who's in the development world would have access to any of, so long as they fit into the program categories, any of the incentives that we currently have for the development community. The municipality cannot give grants directly to private businesses because of the Municipal Act and the bonusing piece. But we, through our Small Business Centre, do offer grants to small businesses in the startup phase, and it's provincial money that flows through the municipality to those businesses. So if co-ops or social enterprises were looking at starting in the community, we don't currently have a dedicated program to those, but there are opportunities for them. And if the group wanted to kind of look into this further, we would just need to do a little bit more background research into what is possible and what's not possible from a municipal standpoint. The second item was a local food app. And absolutely agree that local food is really important. We have a Kawartha Choice program that is owned by Kawartha Lakes and Peterborough Economic Development. It's been in existence for over a decade. There's about 86 farms that sell directly to the public that are part of that program right now. And we are just about to enter into a new project with Peterborough Economic Development where we're looking at redoing the assets of that program. So the website, the back end of it, filling it out and growing it. We think there's probably 100 local producers that could be part of that program in the next couple of months. The third piece was around mainstreaming community gardens, and it is fabulous to have people growing their own food, particularly vegetable and some limited poultry. And there are some, the council has been having some discussions around backyard chickens, which kind of fits into this discussion here. If this piece is around food security, then that's another conversation, a really good conversation to have. Many of the farmers here in Kawartha Lakes are in the commodified food system. So if we're talking about the distribution of wealth between farmers and processors, retailers and consumers, that's a great broader discussion to be having. The fourth one is around local food processing. Having sustainable incomes for farmers is a very good thing. Currently, we work with Northumberland, the Food Venture Centre down in Northumberland, which partially came out of the local food BRE, Business Retention Expansion Project, that Kawartha Lakes was a part of. And that is a facility that has incredible resources for small food processors to share these machines to be able to make their own food products and get it out in market. So that's what we work with at the moment. It's been a great resource for our small food processors. The fifth one was a Kijiji barter system. It's a non-municipal one. It's a really interesting idea. Number 6, the homeowner retrofit program. I think we just need to explore this one a little bit further. And there have been some backroom conversations about this. And the 7th one is around green energy.
Rebecca, sorry, can I just interrupt? So just on that home retrofit program, I did write a letter in support of a group out of Toronto that is sort of lobbying the federal government for this program to be funded. And there's, I think, 7 communities that they were acting on behalf of. And so this is a program to get funding for these 7 municipalities to do a kind of status of their housing. So, and this will be a requirement for anybody applying for federal grant money for the retrofit program to have this status report in place ahead of time. There is an expectation, and the federal government did announce it this last week in terms of, I think, $2.6 billion towards a retrofit program in the new year. And so we are on the sort of front edge of that program, because if the grant money comes through to do the status of our housing, existing housing, we'll be well placed to apply for this grant money when it comes out from the federal government.
Thanks, Chris. So that kind of indirectly also ties to the last one, which was to lobby provincial and federal governments. This is specifically to help obtain and retool the Fleetwood plan to supply the production of green energy technology and electric cars in collaboration with Green Jobs Oshawa. That's a discussion that needs to be had, but the city does have a healthy environment plan, and one of the activities of next year is to be implementing that healthy environment plan. And Chris, maybe you can speak more to that as well. And you're on mute.
We've got some money in the 2021 budget for implementation of the Healthy Environment Plan, and Ron and Denise and I have been sort of discussing how to sort of governance structure to put in place for that implementation. We have taken on a Trent University student to help with that implementation project, and so that Trent University student will be working with us over the next, I think, 4 months as part of that program to help develop a governance structure and help with the implementation of that program.
Great, thank you. Any questions on that portion? A lot of information there, but a lot of these things are obviously already in the works. Sherry, David, Tom, go ahead. Yep.
Just on the idea around the food related piece, and I think Rebecca may have mentioned or referred to it. There is an initiative out of Peterborough Kawarth's Economic Development to develop a regional food hub for a distribution center in Peterborough. I'm all for it. I have been for years, and it would certainly include the food producers in City Kawarth Lake. So that's at a scale that's very different than what could be done locally in the City Kawarth Lake. So I think there are a lot of really interesting food initiatives, but all the little ones aren't going to add up to a lot. You need to do something at a big scale to make the impact. I think the examples of what the initiatives you've taken forward to council are an example of how you can actually mobilize big things to have big impacts with lasting legacies. So these are all good, but there has to be something meatier to it when it comes to it, and in the end. And I think overall these are good. but we need to look for the big projects that are going to have lasting impacts. These little ones will add up to something, but not enough.
Thank you. So Rebecca, how do we make this into a big project? How do we make a big impact? Come on, you've got all the answers. She's not going off mute anymore.
Oh, well, that's a great question. I think it's one for further discussion and having to figure out what's the objective that we want to reach at the end of the day, and then work back from there on what that big picture piece is. The economic development strategy that council put in place, particularly around food, had some pretty lofty but important goals, like growing the food processing sector here, growing employment, growing the number of businesses here, growing that entire industry in this area because of the link between growers and processors and the great assets that we have here. So I don't actually think that we need to change where we were hoping to go and have been working for. Maybe how we get there might look different because of the pandemic and new things that are taking place. But I think I don't have an answer for you right now. I think we need to choose what it is that we want to, if there's something different to be pursuing, then that's a discussion that needs to be had.
Yeah, no, I agreed, and I like the bold, the bold idea, and I think you're bang on. Like when you say, what's the end result? What's the end goal we want to accomplish to really make an impact? And then, let's figure out how to go back from there. And I think that's a great lead into Sherry, who's our manager of communications, who's talked a little bit about just getting some feedback and looping in the community. And maybe what we can do is we can have a little bit of a discussion offline with the group or something, and just what is the goal we're looking to accomplish. We can go out and get some community input and see what some of the ideas are, and then we can come back and sort of say, how do we are we in support of putting a plan together to sort of move this forward with a bit more information? So might be a good place to start. So Sherry, did you have any ideas you want to share with us just on the community feed communications? You're on mute, Sherry. Did we lose her?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
I've got two audios happening today. Are you hearing an echo like I am?
No, it's good.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to share with the task group that we have a public engagement tool that we've been using already to reach out to the community on a variety of projects. One of them is the recovery project. And so we have that available to us if the task force or council wants to bring forward one of those big ideas or bold projects, and we want to engage and inform the community about those topics. So, sorry, I'm hearing an echo still, and it's really distracting.
We're not hearing the echo. We're hearing you loud and clear. Or we were till you muted again.
Okay.
I think if you turn down the volume on your computer, then you won't get the sound coming back at you.
Thank you. I've tried that. Oh, much better. Okay. So has everybody been to the Jump In Kawartha Lakes website? No. Okay. If it's helpful, I can share my screen and give a visual of what we've been doing to share the recovery project with the community to date.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Can everybody see this website? Okay, so this is Jump In Kawartha Lakes. Council invested in this platform at the end of 2019 when we wanted to reach out to the community on our strategic plan. And so since that time, we've added a number of different projects. You can see we have a waste reduction and environmental focus project. We have some information on the Finland Fall Second Crossing, Old Mill Heritage Conservation Engagement. This is how to register here. You can read about our strategic plan and how the community was involved with that. And then on Kawartha Lakes Recovery, this is the project where we've combined the two different task force, and we've been sharing through our news feed, keeping the public up to date on what the task force has been looking at and bringing forward. So there's a history there for anyone new to the community or who hasn't been following along. There's all of our news releases, your agendas, reports, etc. The business survey that was done, all of those results are there. And then some helpful links, depending on whether you are part of a community organization or a business looking for support. But the engagement piece is in some of these other tabs. And so the survey was here and it's now closed. You can see under ideas, there's been some posting, not a whole lot of uptake, but this all depends on what we're looking at and what we're asking of the community. So if the task force had a specific big idea on local food or some of the other ideas that we've been talking about, we can post polls, little quick polls to get a gauge on how the community is feeling and needing. We can open up a forum discussion for some back and forth. So there's a variety of ways that we can engage with the public, depending on, and this goes back to Rebecca's point, we need to know what we're asking and how we want the public to engage. And then we can craft that on this site. But to date, within this community of Jump In, we've had 12,000 people become aware of the variety of projects. We've got 1,200 engaged citizens that have signed up and are regularly receiving our newsletters. So every time we add a new project or we open up a new discussion item, we let those people know and ask them to jump in again. So that's just a quick snapshot of the tool. And just know that on the back end, there's a really robust data collection. So we can bring back to council or back to the task force a breakdown of what people are saying based on the engagement that we've been undertaking. So I'll just leave it there and see if there's any questions or further thoughts.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you give us our screen back and then I'll see if there's suggestions. Thank you. Any questions for Sherry on the website to Jump In? I guess it's just going to go back to, you know, what do we want to form and what do we want to ask? What do we want to get the public to engage in? So until we have some ideas or a bold idea we want to put out there to see what people think, then we can craft the message around that. So any thoughts, comments, questions? Councillor O'Reilly, go ahead.
Just a quick one, maybe through, like Tom had mentioned earlier, that about the food hub in Peterborough, and he mentioned that maybe we should have go forward with a bigger project. I don't know whether this is the appropriate time. I was going to ask Tom, would he have any thoughts or ideas of what one of those bigger, some of the bigger projects? Or are we looking to have another forum to discuss that through you, Andy? Tom?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I think the food issue, we're distracted by production. And really the problem is distribution. And so we need to expand production, obviously, if we can be more sustainable locally. But the real problem is the, most of the produce, let's say that's made, it goes to Toronto and then is shipped back to where it was grown. So it's a distribution problem. we have the technology to solve the distribution problem now. So we can have smaller food hubs with distribution networks developed with new technologies. And that's the combination of technology and new organizational structures. So I would turn the attention to food distribution at a regional level. And I think that's whether that's the real intent or what the way it really began, I hope it was, to this initiative around a regional food hub in the Peterborough area. I think that's very good, and it's really addressing distribution, not production. So that would be a transformational shift. Take the technology, organize it in a different way, and solve the distribution problem rather and encourage more production. But in itself will make more production happen regionally. That's my big idea.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Any comments, questions? How do we take something like that from can't obviously decide here on the spot, but how do we take an idea like that or a concept like that and sort of take it to the planning, implementation, community feedback? Rebecca, you've unmuted. Go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I'm having computer issues here. I think if there's an interest from the group, we have an ag and food strategy. It really does look, the production is a big part of that strategy. There is a part of it that's around food production. So we can, I think it would be wise, we have a lot of research already and connection to the agriculture and the distribution community to start some industry sort of specific thoughts and work out what the opportunities are behind that. Reaching out to the community, it would be interesting to know what the demand would be and what consumer behavior would be from residents and their uptake on where or how they would actually like to, if this is something that's going to be pursued, sort of look at what the demand would be. Tom, one of the things that you'd said to us right at the beginning of this discussion was that demand would really drive recovery. And so actually understanding where that demand falls as we sort of transition into the recovery of the pandemic and formalize new ways of doing things, what those new ways actually are. But we can do so, if this is something the group would like, we can do some background work and come back with some thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's worth pursuing. I don't know, does anybody not think it's something we should pursue? I mean, it's food, it's local, it's, the distribution, the production. I mean, I'm not sure there's anything more important when we talk about growing our community and keeping things in our community. So, Kathleen, you had something you want to add?
Mute. Yeah. So as someone who owns a restaurant and who has been purchasing local food for 15 years since we moved here, my farmers have gotten busier. This pandemic has actually assisted them. They've bought more livestock. They have sold more fruit, more vegetables. But the amount of people who are now aware of the local food market here is incredible. When I moved here from Minneapolis, I couldn't find local food. I didn't know where to get it. Now there's a whole network, and I think it's amazing. And Tom, I agree. My friends, they farm, they sell their stuff in Toronto. It goes to the Carrot Common, and then it comes back here because the people bring it back up to the cottage. That's crazy. So, we could reduce a lot of things, emissions, all of that, if we had a local food hub. So this is awesome. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I think we'll look at this as maybe our next idea to build some ideas around, and maybe what we'll do is we'll have a discussion with Tom and Rebecca offline, and maybe next week we can just have a little chat if the task force agrees, and I think we can put a bit of a framework together and see if we can come up with a little plan on with what Sherry mentioned, how we can reach out to the community, get some feedback, and maybe we can regroup again in January at some point and just further that discussion when we're a little farther along. Is everybody okay with that course of action? Sounds good. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you, Sherry. So I just want to go back to a round table real quick. If there's anything, that pretty much is what I wanted to update everybody on today. We're not going to disband the task force. I think we'll follow up on this food production, food hub. I think is a great idea moving forward. So if we can do some work in the background, and then we can maybe touch base some point in January and just sort of see how we can take it to the next level. I think would be a great direction. But I do want to do a quick round table, just if there's anything anybody wants to comment on or add. Is there something else that you think we should be looking at, such as this food thing? I think is great. So I'm just gonna pluck out some names there, and if there's anything you want to bring forward, go right ahead. So Bjorn, I'll turn it over to you first. Anything you want to add?
Yes, please. I wouldn't mind circling back to something we talked about very, very early on in terms of planning. We were talking about how a lot of planning time was spent talking to the public who called in and had the questions of possible developments, this and that, and it was a bit disruptive. At that point, we were talking about having some kind of separating that, like having a place where they can go and possibly even pay a fee for getting planning advice. I don't really have an idea of what should work, but I wouldn't mind having some informal discussions with Chris, maybe Richard, and possibly Sherry and whoever else. Just talk in general, see if that is something that can be useful. We can find a formula that we think might work, could be tied into the concierge program to some degree. It should, if it works, it should create better applications, keep the stupid or insignificant questions away from the planners. It's just something that I don't know, but it looks to me like it could fit in. That's one thing I'd like to circle back and look at. The other thing is just a general thought of when we look forward. I know that the province has I guess a big plan for what each municipality is allowed to build and where we're supposed to build it, and how the bylaws are supposed to work for severances and this and that. But I think we have some local control. And when I look at, I'm on the lake, I pay high taxes and I get virtually no services. I think that is a brilliant business idea. If we can push development into something where we can get, collect really high taxes and give those people nothing in return, I think it's a lot that, we need money to run the municipality. I think we should really look at this. And again, I'd like to have some informal discussions with Chris and maybe Juan or whoever else might want to have an opinion on it. That's my 2 cents.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. That last one, I'm glad you said it, not me. But yeah, how do we tax people more and give them less services? Let's work on that for outreach. Bjorn, I got it. And I'm not going to argue with you about the services you get on the lake. So we'll have that discussion another day. But point taken. So I think yeah, that's a good informal discussion. Maybe you can reach out in the meantime with Chris and Richard and whoever, and just sort of have a bit of a conversation there. I don't think Chris will object to that. And then maybe that's something we can bring forward at the next meeting sometime in January, just to see if there's something there worth developing. We'll go from there. Thank you for that, Bjorn. Pat O'Reilly, anything you want to add?
No, I just think that I like all the things we're going forward with. I think it's great. I want to thank staff and especially our public members too for their great input. And I'm just kind of wondering why Bjorn didn't do his due diligence before he built at the lake.
Well, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to leave that one. We're going to move on. Tom Phillips, anything you want to add?
Not really, but I think you and the council need to be commended for taking this stuff forward. I think it's very progressive. I see some other communities that are still wringing their hands about what to do and how to move forward and how to have a new view of the recovery and doing important things now for legacies. I think the job has been really well done.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what, I agree. And I think the council had a lot of respect for both these task forces and, the way they reached out to the community and what they came back with. And I will say that most of these recommendations that came forward to council as decision units were unanimously supported by all of council. So council knows we need to recover. They know we need to make some decisions, and having these task forces to sort of provide that background information and focus on where we can really make a difference, I think certainly helps council, make good decisions and move forward. So I appreciate that, Tom. Thank you. Mark Wilson, anything you want to touch on or add? You unmuted, Mark, but we're not hearing you. Sir.
Sorry, guys. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can. Yeah. Go ahead. No, we've lost you again.
Try this. How's that? Can you hear me now?
That works. Yeah. Don't touch anything.
Sorry.
Just talk.
Technology. No, I think it's been a good discussion, and it's been good to be part of the committee, and it's encouraging to see things moving forward, and just from, driving around, walking around, seeing things happening downtown with the construction, and just driving around seeing development happening. It's good to see. So I'm encouraged.
Great. Thank you. Juan, Director of Engineering, anything?
One quick thing. It's more for information, but Andy, you asked me about the the various metro links and the long-term planning provincially last week. So I just sent you an email. It's the latest Greater Golden Horseshoe Transportation Planning Study that the province is initiating. I think they started in 2017, but this presentation was done on February of 2020, so earlier this year. It's an ongoing work group that I'm part of. And I've highlighted some slides for you. Again, this is outside of this task force, but just for information. They do talk about where the province is growing and the pressures on all sorts of transportation methods, like transit, rail, marine, air, and obviously roads, a road network. So it's an ongoing. Lindsay is on the map, which is good. We're on the perimeter, but we are on the map as part of the Greater Golden Horseshoe Transportation Study. So there's going to be more information to come in the new year.
Awesome, thank you. Jennifer Johnson, I know you've been doing our paperwork. Much appreciated, keeping us on track. Is there anything that you've want to add? Anything you've agree, disagree with?
No, I think it's a great initiative that you guys have been doing, and glad that I could be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank all the public members for pushing us, not to say we were reluctant in any way, but, it was good to have Bjorn kind of, shoving along to get things done and to have the meetings and to get staff working on these projects. Just impressed with, like Bjorn, I sat on many of the public work group sessions, and I really think we covered every single issue that the public brought up, the business community and the various sectors brought up. So impressed that we managed to cover all those issues and to address them and implement, ways of going forward. So impressed with the group for sure.
Agree. Thank you. Councillor Vale, anything you want to add?
Thanks. No, I think the food hub discussion will be a great discussion with the Ag Committee and everything. I know there's already been talk of going more in that direction and more local processing. Just further to Bjorn's point about a plan, maybe something to look at. I know in several conversations I've had with Richard Hawley through this pandemic, with planning actually being closed to the public and the counter, there's been more of a discussion about not reopening the counter, right? And having more of an appointment basis. So people want to do something, they book an appointment to see a planner, and that way the planners have all the information and stuff in front of them, and instead of just somebody randomly showing up at 10:30 at the counter and you've got bits and pieces and stuff like that. So I think that's likely a real good discussion to have with planning and how we can streamline that.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. I agree, and I think that ties in nicely with what Bjorn was talking about from communication, and so that could be part of that discussion with Chris. Thanks, Kathleen. Anything you've talked about the food hub, but anything you want to add?
Yes, actually, because Tom had brought something else up before, and I don't know if it's where it went. Tom had just had brought up a business hub, where there's one place where people can go, where they can find the marketing, they can find accounting, they can find all of that. Because as small businesses, it's very difficult. You spend half your time looking for an accountant, and then, you know, it doesn't work. And I think that should be, if we had that offering, some municipalities do, I think that would be fantastic. And even if it's a private company that does it, but somehow working that into it. I don't know if Tom has some ideas on that, but as a business owner, and we've had several businesses here, and as people who come into town, they still have a hard time navigating. I know that there is the tech hub. This is a little different. Not everybody's doing tech. So we need something for the regular business owners. We have it, but I think that we could expand on it somehow. So yeah, that's just one other little thing that I don't know where that went. And otherwise, this is great. Like, the fact that we've gotten all this done is incredible in such a short time. Wow. So great job, everyone.
Yep, agree. Thank you. So I'll go to Rebecca, see if she's got any comments, and maybe she can respond to your comment as well, Kathleen, because it's a good one that ties in, I think. So go ahead, Rebecca.
I'll follow, if it's okay, I'll follow up with you, Kathleen, and just kind of get some more details on that. We did have an initial discussion with our Chambers of Commerce and our Small Business Centre about this. So it has been a discussion, but I'll follow up with you and get some details, and then we can come back to this group with some more informed feedback. Absolutely. And I think this is just the beginning too. It's pretty amazing what's been done so far. But it's just the beginning of doing some really great things.
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you. And I just wanted to go around the table and ask everybody. I think if we sort of work behind the scenes a little bit on the food hub idea, the business center idea, you can touch base with Kathleen and Bjorn's planning proposal on public call-ins and the counter, and how to maybe the customer service end of it a little bit. Then maybe later in January, we can touch base again and sort of follow up on those and see if we can put some plans in place moving forward. I think would be a good follow up. So that's all I have. Is there anything anybody else wanted to add or reach out, comment on? I think I just had one thing. Rebecca, yeah. I think Rebecca was referring to a document, like a 7-point plan there, and I don't know. I think there was a discussion about that being shared. Was that sent out? And I'm sorry if it was sent to me. I didn't see it. I think maybe Mike Perry's presentation was that. Sorry, Rebecca. Rebecca, are you? Yeah, I think it was the new normal and what we had talked about with Mike Perry's ideas. And some of the thing was sent out, I believe. I believe Jennifer sent it out, but maybe you can resend it to Mark. Did anybody else not get it?
Maybe it's on the council agenda.
Oh, it's on the agenda. Okay, I'll look again, but
that's okay.
Mark,
We can resend
it. Let me know, and I can resend it to you.
Okay, I'll send you an email direct. Thanks, Jennifer.
Okay, thanks, folks. Okay, so. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. Thanks for the follow-up. We've got a few things to work on behind the scenes. We'll get some more information, and I think that's a wrap. So I'll just ask for a motion to adjourn, and we'll do a follow-up meeting in January, if that's okay. Motion to adjourn, Kathleen and Andrew Vale. Anyone object to adjourning? Aha, I thought so. Have a great day. Have a great holiday, everybody. Thank you very much for participating and doing what we've done. I think we have accomplished a lot. We are adjourned, and we'll talk to everybody in the new year. Please stay safe. Thank you.